All right, we're about to get started. For those of you just now joining us, please put your name and your career center or what youth provider you're with in the chat so we can have a record of who all is here. And if there's multiple people with you, put all of their names because we have to turn in a sign-in sheet to USDOL for this training.
And just real quick while we're gearing up, I just want to make sure everyone is aware. I know this was really haphazard put together last minute. That's due to a deadline USDOL set for us to have this training occur. But just to clarify, if you attend the training today, you do not have to attend the training tomorrow unless you're just really into me and Jess's training style. It will be an exact duplicate of the training today. We're just trying to offer it a couple of different times so that, individuals who might have clients or meetings or appointments or sick kids or whatever today would have a second opportunity to make the training. So just like I said, you only have to attend one training. So feel free to have this one count for the entire shebang. This is also an abbreviated training. Once the transition into Department of Workforce is complete after September, Jess and I do plan on hosting full case management, youth, ITA, OJT trainings to kind of get us back on track. This transition's been kind of rough on all of us, but that is the plan. So I know today we're going to just cover very few topics specifically relevant to the monitoring report findings. But just so you know, keep it in the back of your head, we will be contacting you to schedule training by area, uh, probably in the fall or starting in the winter of this year.
All right, we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so we're going to be talking about what we've got in the monitoring report from USDOL, since our post-monitor training. There were four main findings that they found that we're going to talk about today, and one is unsigned IEPs and ISSs. The IEP goals don't reflect a clear path to employment. There was inaccurate or missing source documentation for measurable skills gains and credentials, and the outreach information excluded the unifying brand name. And I'm going to go over all of these with y'all. So first is unsigned IEPs. And what they said was during a review of the case files, there were multiple IEPs that were missing signatures from either the participant, the case manager, or both. And the lack of signatures indicates that the IEPs may not have been jointly developed or agreed upon. So they said here that an IEP is a plan that is developed jointly by the participant in the Career Center, And IEPs must be documented and reflect mutual agreement and commitment from both the participant and the case manager. And that's why the signatures from both of y'all are important. And then you've got to upload that after you complete it. So they told us we need to implement a quality control process to ensure that IEPs are fully executed with all the required signatures before they're finalized in Alabama work. So everybody's going to have to kind of do their part to make sure that they're signed by both the case manager and the participant. And then we will conduct a review of IEPs, the current active ones, to find if there are any unsigned ones, and any that you do have, any current active participants that have unsigned IEPs, you need to come up with a plan to fix that and update them, make sure they have signatures and they are uploaded again. Obviously, collect these where it's feasible. If you can't get in touch with the person or something, just do the best that you can, but try your best to make sure all your IEPs or ISSs are all signed by both you and the participant. And you don't have to do it all in one day. I know for some, this can be a big task. Some of you have very large caseloads. So as long as you have some kind of plan sent to us that lets us know how you plan on doing it, whether it's like, I'm going to do 10 a week or something like that, to make sure that all of them do have IEPs that are signed. You need to send that in and let us know your timeline on that, on what you plan to do. And you can discuss this with the managers, the case career center case managers, and the case managers in the career centers. Wait, career center managers and the case managers. Sorry, discuss what. Figure out something that works with you to make sure that all your IEPs are signed, and focus on your active caseload. Does anybody, that was a short little part for the first one. Is there any questions at all? Let me see if I can open the chat.
I guess it looks like some of the formatting is a bit strange. It was kind of hard to read that last line. I don't know if there's a way to go back. There we go. Okay, because it seems like it's doing it grayed out, and then maybe it's doing it in black afterwards, which is a great effect. But I just want to make sure everyone saw that
That is
last
black
bit.
and white, Kevin. I don't.
You know, I don't do colors. I couldn't seize it.
Can everyone else see it, or is it?
Am I just having a stroke? Can y'all see all of the? I mean, it's black now, obviously. Okay, fair enough. I'll go check that out with the doctor.
All right. The next finding was IEP goals don't reflect a clear path to employment. So with this, with the participants they reviewed, the IEPs they reviewed, they contained a vague or non-specific employment and like to obtain sufficient employment. And these statements failed to reflect a clear and actionable plan for guiding the participants towards meaningful employment. So, their recommendations are to develop SMART goals, which are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. So IEPs must identify what the employment goals, the achievement objectives, and the appropriate combination of services for the participant. And these plans they must be individualized and clearly outlined. So everybody shouldn't have the same exact goals on their IEP. So for the SMART goals, you need to be specific, and that means you need to clearly define what they want to achieve. Make it measurable. So how are you going to track their progress? You need some kind of timeline. That's the last one. Make sure it's achievable. You need to set realistic and attainable goals. Make sure they're relevant. Connect your goals to your overall academic and personal objectives. So it should go back to that objective assessment too. What they put on there and your IEP should kind of go together. And then set a time frame. You need to establish some kind of deadline for achieving that goal. So these are some of the examples. So an educational goal, complete an industry recognized credential. That's very vague. So you may say, or they may say, I will enroll in CNA training program by August 1st and complete it, including passing the certification exam within 3 months. So that's a more specific goal. You may still be able to use this for a couple if you have enrolling a couple of students in CNA, but it's more than just attend CNA. And then what? Like at least we have some kind of time frame of when they hope to achieve that. And then an employment goal, instead of just saying obtain full-time employment. You could say, I will apply for at least 5 jobs per week and attend 1 interview prep session each month in order to secure full-time employment in the healthcare field within the next 90 days. So they're looking for more specific goals on your IEPs and ISSs, and make sure that it's kind of tailored to whoever it is that you're working with, and ties to their objective assessment as well. So they want us to make sure that the case managers get training. Check, that's what we're doing right now. And start developing those SMART goals, SMART employment goals and education goals, and start doing that now. Make sure you can provide a quality assurance protocol to be implemented that will require supervisor review of IEPs. So you may help each other out, review each other's IEPs to make sure that they have those SMART goals. And then review any of your active participants and update them to reflect those meaningful, customized employment goals instead of just the generic go to school, get a job. And then we'll complete a summary of the revised IEPs and provide a training completion report to the state and regional office within 30 days. So go ahead and start working on updating, and obviously with your new ones, make sure that you have more specific goals, and then we're going to go back and review and give a report to the state and the regional offices on how you're progressing on your IEPs and ISSs. Are there any questions and comments on any of that? And if you don't have them now, you can email us as well.
Yeah, I just want to jump in. I'll probably jump in on each one of these. Y'all know I love to talk. So career center managers, area managers, y'all are supposed to be, well, specifically the career center managers, y'all are supposed to be checking your eligibility, right? WIO is too big of a program and it's far too well funded for us to, just let the career center manager or career center case managers do what they do and leave it alone. I know the career centers have a lot of different programs, that type of thing, but that was part of the finding, right? Is that WIO doesn't seem to be having enough emphasis. So when your case managers enroll a new client, it has always been the rule that the career center manager is then responsible for reviewing that eligibility, making sure the documents are done, making sure the assessments are done, making sure that this IEP, IDP, ISS, which, by the way, USDOL informed me that they all mean the same thing, so I don't know why we have so many acronyms for it, but you have to make sure that that's getting done, right? We can't have this falling through the cracks thing. So this isn't just on the case managers. The case managers have a lot to do. They have these hour-long, 2-hour-long meetings with the clients to get them enrolled, trying to help these people. You need to be that back line and make sure that you're double checking things, questioning things, making sure that everything's actually in the system, all of that, and signed, right? All of that good stuff. That never changed.
All right. The next one, I'm just going to go over this somewhat quickly, and Kevin's going to go more in depth about this one. But the third finding was there was inaccurate or missing source documentation for measurable skills gains and credentials. This is the long thing that they wrote about all of this. So there were instances in MIS, which is Alabama Works, records that claimed a measurable skills gain without any uploaded source documentation to verify the outcome. So if you are entering an MSG, there has to be some kind of documentation that goes with that. And then some credentials were inaccurately recorded. So one example they gave was a human anatomy and physiology certificate of completion was entered as a credential when it should have been documented as a measurable skills gain. So a certificate of completion does not count as a credential. It was discovered that different youth service provider case managers are recording the same measurable skills gain multiple times for the same participant. Also, there is no record of either the youth service provider or the lead or the AJC youth coordinator correcting the duplication. So if, I'll go into it again, if you do accidentally enter the same thing more than one time, just let the help desk know and we can get the duplicate one deleted for you. And then they felt that the staff weren't fully trained on the distinction between MSGs and credentials. So we're going to go over it some more today. Oop. Okay, so here is the long definition that they reminded us of an MSG. And we have an MSG skills overview that I updated a little bit that Kevin's also going to look at, and then we'll have that posted in the staff online resources to make it a little bit more clear and hopefully help y'all out with that. So the corrective action and this is, y'all, I copied and pasted all of this from the report, so that's why it's like this. The corrective action was conduct a comprehensive review of the active participant files to review the MSG entries and credential data to validate their accuracy. So that's why we have a data validation team to help us look at that stuff. And then we're providing training now and discussing the differences between MSGs and credentials so that everybody has a better understanding and hopefully are entering these things correctly according to USDOL standards. And see, they told us to do sign-in sheets for this training. So that's why we asked for everyone to let us know who all's listening in today. And then implement a formal data validation checklist. That is Kevin. He will be doing that and talking about that in just a minute. We're going to be updating the measurable skills gain overview. This is not the staff online resources yet, but these are some of the things we're talking about changing. We haven't finalized it yet, but just to make it a little bit clearer for the education and functioning level, that's going to be what you're going to use for the TABE. The EFLs are for anyone who is below post-secondary. So once someone gets their GED, according to the feds and all, you don't have to post-TABE them and try to get an EFL because they got their GED and that is their measurable skills gain for that. So the EFLs are really just for the students who don't have their GED or high school diploma yet. And then we're going to refine the post-secondary transcript and report card because I think some of the duplicate MSGs that they said were entered may have been here. So we're going to make sure to define that better so that there aren't too many or there won't be duplicates or maybe make it look like there are duplicates. So once we have finished updating this, I'll send it out to you and put it in the staff online resources as well. For credentials, this is something Kevin's probably going to have the same thing in his PowerPoint as well. This is how he tried to kind of made it a little bit more simple for everyone to understand credentials because there's not a list, even though everyone always asks, is there a list of what counts as a credential and what doesn't, or do you have a specific? No, we don't. We do anything on the ETPL does count as a credential, but if you have any questions about what may or may not, you can always email the help desk and they can get you an answer for that. But overall, a credential, this is from Kevin, it reports the completion of a standalone course of study. It includes at least 40 hours of instruction. It has to have a cost that's competitive with other regional programs. So if one is if it's 4,500 here and it's $20,000 across the street, that's not competitive if it's the same exact program. And it's got to fulfill the requirements of an entry level or better full-time position. So this is why things like forklift alone does not count as a credential. It may be something that could be added to a course to go along with other things to make a credential, but smaller things like that, where just forklift alone may not get you a job, but if you added it to a different job, like a manufacturing job or something, it would be beneficial. So some of the findings were the staff weren't fully trained on proper documentation and requirements or the distinction between, and Kevin's going to go into more detail. And there were PowerPoints posted in the staff resources, and we'll post the ones for today in there. And then we'll have the new MSG overview, and we'll try to do one for credentials too, just so y'all can have a good desk aid and try to help you distinguish what's what. And you can always email as well. And then with the youth service providers, recorded the same measurable skills gained multiple times for the same participant. I think some of that was entering some of single courses, maybe. I'm not sure, but we're going to review that and update the overview so it'll be a little bit more simple, and hopefully we won't get in trouble for this again. Are there any questions or comments on that? All right. Last little finding I'm going to go over is outreach information excluded the unifying name and brand. And we all got in trouble for this. The local boards, us, the youth providers, everybody apparently didn't have this correct on the way that they wanted it to be. So all outreach material must have the American Job Center unifying name and brand. And you can include the tagline phrase, a proud partner of the American Job Center Network, and there's their logo. I put more information on this in the staff resources too, but any outreach material needs to be updated with having this on there, their logo or their tagline and all that good stuff. And then we're going to create a quality assurance process, probably including send it to us to review before you make your material, to make sure that it matches what they want it to have with the logo and the correct verbiage and all that good stuff somewhere on there. And then we will distribute the policies and the procedures. So we'll have to come up with that. And then provide documentation. We'll have to do that to the regional office showing that the outreach materials were revised and the policies and the procedures and all that good stuff. So in the staff online resources, there is now a new link under the ITA column that's just kind of off by itself that says America Job Center brand info, and it will take you to the website that has their logos and the fonts they like and all of the graphic style guide for all of that stuff for you to use on any of your marketing materials. Because you got to make sure you're putting that on everything now. So I just made it available to everyone because I know our youth providers will use it, but some of y'all in the Career Center may be making your own little pamphlets or whatever. And just make sure that you're including the logo or the tagline or whatever. You can read through all that to get a better understanding of what exactly it is that they want you to do. So are there any questions or comments on that? All right, hopefully this was helpful. I will post this PowerPoint on the staff online resources today, this afternoon, so y'all can have it. And we'll be back here tomorrow at the same time if you want to listen to it again. If you have any questions, you can email me and Kevin Mahadran. And those are our email addresses if you didn't already know them. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Kevin to do his more in-depth training on MSGs and credentials.
Right, nobody gets to leave yet. We still got to do the fun part. So let me see if I'll get it booted up here. And if you have attended one of my trainings before, a lot of this will seem familiar, but we're going to go through it again because we were ordered to by the U.S. Department of Labor, and you do what the government tells you to do. So this is specifically, I'm not doing the full case management training, so far fewer jokes. I know, it's tragedy. But this is specifically MSG and credential training, all in response to the findings that Jess just covered for you. So let's just hop right in. I'm not trying to take up too much of y'all's day today. If I can switch screens, here we go. All right, measurable skills gains and credentials. Measurable skills gains, what are they? Any individual that receives a training service code that leads to a recognized post-secondary credential or employment is included in the denominator, meaning that that individual requires an MSG, right? So that's measured in real time. It includes active services and services that closed within the last 4 quarters. So if you enroll somebody today, the system is going to be looking for them to have an MSG the next time the quarter ends. Now, I know that that is a bit confusing. We have been advised by USDOL that is intentional, not a bug, not a flaw, but it's a feature. So that is part of the reason why the MSG rate is never like 80%, right? Because there's always going to be individuals that are enrolled, right before a quarter ends or way too soon for an MSG to come through. That is part of the reason why the MSG rate sits around 50-55% for everybody. But again, just so you know, any individual that is active in the system and those individuals who had services closed within the last 4 quarters are going to be considered in this MSG rate. So if a participant receives WIO across program years, multiple MSGs may be required. Therefore, record every MSG possible. Now, part of me wonders if this piece of guidance is leading to the multiple MSG issue. I will state that I never meant multiple copies of the exact same MSG, and I feel like I'd be insulting the intelligence of everyone here if I truly believe that this cause is because of this statement. Obviously, that's not what I mean, right? If they have a report card in fall and then they have a report card in spring, those are 2 different MSGs. They will have 2 different dates. But what we have seen in data validation is the exact same credential being copied, as in word for word, date for date, it's the exact same. So I'm not sure if that is user error. I'm not sure if a button is getting clicked twice or if the system is doing something. I don't know, right? But we have been tasked with reviewing these and making sure this is happening correctly. So when you're when you're entering your MSGs in the future, starting today, go ahead and return back to that main screen. Make sure your MSG entered correctly and singularly, right? Make sure it just went in one time. Okay, this is the list of services that require an MSG. So this was my attempt to answer the question of, who needs an MSG, Kevin? First off, all in-school youth need an MSG. They're in school, right? They should be getting report cards every semester. Out of school youth that are enrolled in adult ed, youth build, or Job Corps, which I guess Job Corps RIP, as far as I know, I'm not sure if that is entirely gone, but anyway, we do have adult ed and youth build programs in the state. So if an out of school youth is enrolled in either, they will also require a MSG. As far as other participants, adult, dislocated worker, and other youth participants, if they have one of these service codes, they will be required to have an MSG. If you look at the service codes, it's going to give you a great idea of what types of individuals require an MSG, right? Most of them are either training or education related, right? If you're put into some type of training, the idea is ultimately you will be put into employment, right? On the job training, apprenticeship, that type of thing. If you're put into some type of education, like adult education or basic skills training, obviously the thought is you'll eventually be getting a diploma, right? Or some type of credential. So that's some of the mental calculus, but if you just want a handy desk aid, this has been available on staff online resources for years now. You should probably have a copy printed out on your desk in your performance binder with a big picture of me blown up on the front of it so you know to get your performance in, right? All right, let's talk about the types of MSGs. Obviously, there's educational functioning level gains. So that's for, like just mentioned just a few minutes ago, that's for the individuals that do not have a secondary diploma. They have an educational functional level or EFL. So that's essentially means like a grade level equivalency, right? That this is like, well, this person's kind of functioning on the 7th grade level for math, or they're kind of functioning on the 9th grade level for reading, that type of thing. We're looking to promote those up until they get to, that sweet spot. And, you're lucky. Our system does these calculations for you. So I'll show you that at the end of the show when we get to the documentation section. Secondary school diploma alongside placement in employment or training. So this is the only one with a little additional performance caveat. A high school diploma, a GED, or any kind of equivalency also requires that that participant be found to be employed or placed in training within a year of exit. The system is going to automatically calculate that. There's no way to get around it. So if your participant has gotten their GED, your job is not done. We don't exit that participant immediately. That is when career services start, right? The Wagner Pizer of it all. Help them with their resume, help them with interviews, give them some mentorship, whatever their needs are, refer back to their IEP, IDP, ISS, right? Go back to that alphabet soup, find out what you said that you were going to do, what are their ultimate goals, and help them achieve. That is why we're here, not to just check off a box. Secondary or post-secondary report card trainings. So that's for someone who maybe hasn't finished the program. Report card transcripts, not trainings. If somebody's in high school, they should be getting a report card quarterly. If someone's in post-secondary education of any kind, they should be getting report cards transcripts. That's for like your ITAs, that type of thing, right? Training milestones. So there has been the mnemonic device that's, again, existed for years now, on-the-job training milestones. If you have a participant enrolled in an OJT or an apprenticeship, right, they can receive a training milestone, and the system is going to expect them to. The definition of a training milestone is a bit complicated. I'm providing it for the benefit of USDOL. The most recent date where the participant had a satisfactory or better progress report towards established milestones from an employer or a training provider who is providing training. For example, the completion of on-the-job training program or the completion of the year of registered apprenticeship, etc. We usually use the training evaluation plan, the TEP, for our OJTs. Your business service reps probably know a little bit more about this. But if you have someone enrolled in a on-the-job training program, at the very beginning of that program, they fill out a TEP. At their 51, once their 51% of hours is completed, they update the TEP. And then once 100% of those OJT hours are completed, they finalize the TEP. That counts as an MSG. That document is what Alabama uses to document the MSG for training milestones. We also have skills progressions, occupational skills training, occupational skills progressions, right? This is for your ITAs or other forms of occupational training. So again, the USDOL required definition is it's the most recent date of a participant that a participant successfully completes an exam that is either required for a particular occupation or for progress in attaining technical or occupational skills as evidenced by trade-related benchmarks such as knowledge-based exams. Essentially, it's a test, right? This is a test. This could be some type of midterm test towards some type of occupation. This could be the CDL exam. This could be, some type of medical examination, any kind of important milestone test that is required for the completion of that training program of that ITA. There are numerous of them. So in the example that we got in the monitoring report, where it said that someone, had listed a anatomy and physiology certificate of completion incorrectly as a credential, that should have been an MSG. That's a skills progression. I am certain anatomy and physiology is required for some kind of medical degree. That is why was in the wrong place. It should have been entered as a skills progression, not as an actual credential itself. Okay, let's talk about credentials. There's a lot of definitions of credentials, and I'm really trying to bite my tongue because I'm going to be sending this video to our friends at USDOL, and I don't want to seem glib or glib, but here are some attempts at defining what a credential is. Any individual that receives skills upgrading, entrepreneurial training, ITAs, ABE or ESLs, registered apprenticeships, or prerequisite trainings is included in the denominator, meaning that they must receive a credential in the system or fail the performance. This is measured 4 quarters after exit. That is a strict maximum. as in 366 days after exit, the system is no longer going to allow you to enter a credential, even if you're trying to backdate it. So you have 1 year. This is another great reason not to exit participants prematurely, which is part of the larger case management training that I do not have time for today, but we will discuss in the fall. So on-the-job training and work-based learning does not report credentials for performance, right? These are essentially our ITAs or other occupational skills training events, right? The official definition of a credential, to say that I said it, an industry recognized certificate or certification, a certificate of completion of a registered apprenticeship, not of any exam ever, but a certificate of completion of a registered apprenticeship specifically, a license recognized by the state involved or federal government, or an associate or baccalaureate degree attained by the participant who received education or training services. I have a few other definitions of a credential that I put into this slideshow to try to cut through some of the jargon in this. So we'll get to those imminently. Just went over this. I'm not going to bore you by going over it twice. This is the Kevin Mahadran definition of a credential for Alabama. It's just an attempt to say, is this program valid as a credential in our state, right? Because numerous education and training institutions have developed new credentials, literally thousands of them. Our ETPL is bombarded with them all the time. We're constantly having to turn them away because let's see, it's capitalism, right? These agencies, these organizations and training institutions, they know there's money. They know WIO has a ton of money to help students get credentials. So there is a current thought process that if we just create a whole bunch of different types of credentials, we're going to nab all this WIO money. It is your job to be the gatekeeper of this WIO money. We have to make certain that these credentials are actually helping the clients. They should be able to get a job anywhere in the country almost immediately, simply by the merit of having what you are saying is a credential, right? It's not small things. A credential is a big thing, right? And we're going to go into some depth on that here in a second. All right, credential services, another great desk aid, just like the MSG services. Credentials are a little simpler to determine who requires them, right? Any participant with any one of these services will require a credential. And it's similar to MSGs. If you take a look at it, most of these are education based, right? Right? They're going to be like some type of training. They're going to be GED prep or some type of adult education, being enrolled in high school, MAPS, that type of thing. Those all require credentials. So again, this should be in your performance binder so that you can go back and say, does Johnny need a credential? Oh crap, he's got a 416. Yes, he does need a credential. I need to make sure I get a copy of that from him or from the provider. Okay, types of credentials in depth. This is a new slide that I will be adding to the official case management training to really try to break into what is a credential. Now I'm going to say I might get tagged by DOL because I'm going to go and tell you there is no one definition for any of the things I'm attempting to define. If you dive into the TENS and TEAGLES and all the other alphabet soup, you're going to see so many different types of definitions. You're going to see lists of these things, but they never, or at least not that I've found in the 5 years I've been doing this, they've never in detail said, what is this credential? What do we mean by these words? So I'm going to make the attempt. So first, the easy one, high school high school diploma or equivalency. We all know what that is. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by going into in depth, but essentially we mean a high school diploma, an alternative high school diploma, or a GED. Associate's degree, arts or sciences, abbreviated in the system as AAAS. Again, pretty simple. It's associate school, right? It's usually a 2-year program or thereabouts, and it covers some type of critical occupational knowledge, right? Then you have the more advanced version, the bachelor's degree. In the system, it's abbreviated as BA or BS. This is your standard 4-year degree, what's commonly referred to as an undergraduate degree. This is where it gets tricky. Next, we have the occupational skills license. Again, the following definition is a Kevin Mahadran definition, but I'm going to say let's use it because there's not a better definition online. Awarded by a government agency or an authorized board, whether federal, state, or local. It grants legal authority to perform a specific occupation, meaning that that occupation cannot be performed without this licensure. Generally, these licenses are awarded based on education, certification, exams, work experience, or some combination of those therein. They're time limited and they typically require renewal. So it's generally not something that you receive once in your lifetime. It's something that you might have to go back and test for every few years, or some other type of recurrence that requires you to get it checked on again and pass some other type of, exam, or to get some other type of education, etc. And they're designed to ensure professional competency, safety, and quality. That is the best definition of an occupational skills license that I can do. Again, like Jesse said, if you are not certain what type of credential you have in your hand, simply send the help desk an email. They'll either respond directly or forward it to me. I am their supervisor as far as the WIOA side. We will get it figured out. If we have to go to Tammy or Michelle or, whoever we have to talk to, we'll get it figured out. We'll let you know as soon as possible. Oh, I think I missed one. These are defined by statute, regulation, or administrative rule. Again, they're required. They grant legal authority to do that job. Okay, an occupational certification. So this is my definition of what the government means by occupational certification. It's a credential earned through demonstration of occupational competency. So that could either be an exam or some kind of skill demonstration. Typically, it's endorsed by an industry or by employers, and it aligns with the other definitions of a credential, right? It's distinct from a training certificate because those don't really require independent validation, right? And it aligns with the WIOA performance measurement. So when I think of this, I think of back when I was a monitor way back when, right? We like monitored this like factory, right? And it was where they created fire hydrants. And apparently, I didn't know this until I did this monitoring visit, you have to have an occupational certification to certify fire hydrants, which makes sense when you think about it. Obviously, you don't want those things breaking down. But that was demonstrated through a practica. The participants who were in that training had to go in, had to successfully repair and install a fire hydrant before a licensed instructor. And once they completed that practica, they were awarded their occupational certification. So there might be some of these might exist that you've never heard of before. They might be things you never thought of about, right? Again, if you have a doubt, don't just throw it into the system and use roulette to determine which one of these you're going to put it under. Contact the help desk. That's why we're here. We'll figure it out for you. We'll work together, right? But that is essentially what an occupational certification is. Now, occupational skills certificates or credential. I know it has the word credential in there. I feel like that's cheating, but I didn't write it. So essentially what we're talking about here are occupational skills certificates. That is let me go back. This is like a catch-all category, right? Like occupational certification said, these may not require independent validation. This may be something that, like a training organization does themselves, and they check on it themselves. Their instructors do it. They don't hire external instructors or auditors to come in and verify that type of thing. This is, like I said, this is one of two catch-all categories that exist for some reason. And again, you can't really blame USDOL for the ambiguity here. Again, so many training and education institutions are pumping out new credentials every single year. Technology's changing. All of this stuff is changing every day. This is their attempt to kind of cover as much ground as they can without bogging down in the specifics. I will go ahead and admit, I did not find one cogent definition of this category, right? Essentially, if you think you have one of these, if you have something that's not a license, it's not a certification, right? Maybe it's some type of certificate. You need to contact the help desk if there's any doubt and make certain, hey, Cecily, Kristen, Kevin, does this count as an occupational skills certificate? We'll review it, make sure it has all of the other requirements for WIOA performance measurements of credentials, right? And then there's another catch-all category. I highly recommend that this never get used. Any quote unquote other recognized diploma, degree, or certificate probably should have fit into one of these other categories. So anytime you are about to use the other category, you need to contact the help desk and make certain. You need to get approval of that. When my validators go out and validate credentials, which we do twice a year, I tell them, you need to look at this. If you see an other, we need to review it. That needs to be reviewed. We need to see the actual credential. We need to review that program. We got to make sure that that's valid, because these catch-all categories are prime targets for a federal monitor to come in and say, actually, that's not a credential, right? Which is fair. That's their purview. So we got to make sure we're looking into it. Small note. Oh, I think I have something here. This was this was the definition that I did find from USDOL to cover this concept of other recognized certificates of industry occupational skills completions sufficient to qualify for entry level or advancement in employment. So that's fair. That's a fair definition of such a broad category, but that's kind of why we have to work together on it. If you're going to use it, we need to make sure that the admins are taking a look at it, making sure that it does enable that client to qualify for some type of job or advancement and from their current job. So like, let's work together on that, right? Most 95% of the credentials you're dealing with should fit into those first six categories, right? So let us know if you're trying to use the other. A small note, the system still has graduate and postgraduate degree. Never use that. That's not for us. I'm going to work with Geo to get that struck from the list. Teagle 1016 change 2 clarified that when they say graduate and postgraduate, they only mean that for VR. That's just a voc rehab thing. WIOA Title One does not no longer, I should say, because it used to, no longer allows graduate and postgraduate degrees, so like master's degrees, PhDs, that type of thing. Those no longer count as valid credentials for WIOA Title One programs. If you're dealing with voc rehab, it's a little different, but for us, that does not count. Okay, verification documents, real brief. I'm essentially showing you the system views so that you can say, well, at least once that you've had the system explain to you, how does the system verify documents? So first off, like I say in my standard training, you know that you're supposed to be entering a document when you see this verify with the red asterisk next to it. Right there, there's no excuse. The system will literally not let you advance without filling in this screen, right? So make sure that you do that. You hit the verify button and these radial icons show up, showing you the types of documents that you can use to verify that element. For example, veteran status is verifiable through these 5 types of documents. You select the type of document and then you move on with your, in this case, your eligibility. But let's take a look at it for credentials. This is what it looks like when you're doing it for credentials. So you will enter the type of credential received, all the ones we just went over. You'll hit the verify button like I just said. Now, credentials are easy. In Alabama, we require a copy of the credential. So the only real acceptable answer is copy of degree or certificate. School records and other are on there for the very rare special case, 3% of case kind of situation, and you have to contact the help desk to get approval to use either of those, right? In Alabama, this has always been the case, you're required to have a copy of the actual degree or certificate or credential. And you put in the date that it was received. Then you need to associate it to the type of training or activity that you entered. For example, probably a 416 if they received an ITA. Or if you're talking about a GED, it might be the 415 basic training service, whatever. You have to associate it to the correct training service or whatever activity service that it applies to. Small note, like I said before, high school diplomas and equivalents only count if they've also been employed or were put into an education program within 1 year. Okay, MSGs. MSGs are a little more let's see. So transcript from school showing degree awarded should not be entered in the school record. That's fair. Yeah, if you have a school transcript showing the degree awarded and it has like the date on it, it has all the information that's required for it, that could be entered as a school record. Fair enough. That's one of those 5%. In general, we would prefer to have the actual diploma or degree. So I would really rather that be used as a means of last resort. That's for a few reasons. The biggest reason is sometimes those participants are going to come back years later and be like, well, I lost my diploma. And they want $300 for me to get a new diploma. So if we have it in the system, that's a great way for us to just print it out, give it to the participant and be like, here you go, we got your back. It's just a best practice to get the actual certificate. But like Christina said, if that's not possible, if the participant's gone, you can't find them, mom and them stopped answering, you can use the transcript as a school record. That is one of those acceptable uses. Good point. Okay, MSGs. MSGs a little bit more difficult than credentials when it comes to documentation. but the actual document itself is not. Let's dive into it. Report cards and post-secondary transcripts. Here's what the screen looks like, right? You're going to enter your skill type, post-secondary transcript, or report card. Again, date attained, type of achievement. This was very last minute because again, we only had like 5 days to put up this training. But if you guys have tried to enter a post-secondary transcript before, you know that the type of achievement has two options. There's full-time student and part-time student. So those options give you the exact definition, what we mean by full-time student, right? It does the work for you. That's a student that completed at least 12 hours within a semester. The part that got cut off, I apologize for that, but you can see it in the system, says completed 12 hours in the semester at a successful academic level, something like that, meaning that they didn't fail 12 hours in the semester, they passed 12 hours within the semester. But that's kind of what it's saying. And then you're going to just simply do the other applicable documentation and enter in report card or transcript under the verified section. So that one's easy. Here's the secondary transcript. I was able to figure out the cutting pasting for this one. But again, skill type, secondary transcript, y'all know this, post-secondary is after high school, secondary is high school. The only option is report card or transcript for one semester that reflects the student met, that's what it is, reflects the student met the academic standards, right? And then you'll simply put in report card or transcript or whatever the school's using. Again, it gets a little more difficult the deeper in we go into the rabbit hole. For training milestones, again, these are generally for OJTs, but are also for apprenticeships if you have that type of program. It does the work for you. You hit in training milestone, and the types of achievement are going to give you the very definition of the document that you're looking at, right? Most of those are going to be a satisfactory or better progress towards established employer OJT training milestone, including the completion of an OJT. So this would be the training evaluation plan, the TEP, that all OJTs are supposed to be using. For registered apprenticeship, it's the second option. The apprentice, it even says apprentice, so make sure that it's trying to help you, help the system help you. Apprentice achieves satisfactory or better progress report, right? And then there's kind of another catch-all category, the trainee achieves satisfactory or better. That's because, there's like entrepreneurial training, there's customized training. Training can have so many different forms. We wanted to make sure there was a catch-all if this was not an OJT or apprenticeship situation, but they're very rare. Right? If you're using one of these, you've probably already been in contact with my office, so we could help give you some technical assistance on how we're doing those specialty types of trainings. I encourage you to use them, but they're not very common in Alabama. All right, skills progressions. Same deal, right? Once you type in skills progression, the type of achievement is going to populate with the 3 acceptable types of skills progressions. The most common one is the first one. They successfully completed a required exam. As simple as that, right? Then there's also, for some places, there might not be an exam, but there might be a trade-related benchmark, right? Which again, that's kind of esoteric, kind of specific. That could be like a lot of different things, like the fire hydrant example I gave you earlier. That's not a written exam, right? That's a practica. So if you're talking about a practica, or they call it all kinds of things in the field, but some type of evidence of that they know how to do the job, that is usually monitored by some type of independent instructor or an auditor or something like that, that would be the second option. And then again, another catch-all category for specialty types of trainings, the trainee achieves satisfactory or better progress report for an other skills progression, some type of skills progression, because there are thousands and thousands of trainings and they develop every day. So we always try to leave a catch-all category, but be hesitant in using it. They're not common. The first two are going to be the most common types of skills progression. Let's see, I think I have one more. Okay, well, there's two more. The other EFL, man, when Geo came out with this, I got so many phone calls, I almost unplugged the thing. This is very rare. Okay, the other EFL, by that I mean in the same MSG screen, not under the EFL ribbon, which I'm going to show you in a second, but under the core MSG ribbon, there is a fifth option, other EFL. And the skill type is credits attained for EFL or pass the high school equivalency or completed exhibit. It goes on and on and on. This is a catch-all for EFL gains that are not done through the tape. Just say it one more time. This is a very rare catch-all for EFL gains that are not performed through the tape. And if you go into the type of achievement, it's going to try and help you figure out what you're talking about, what you're looking at. I'm not going to go into all of these in depth because we don't really use Carnegie units much in Alabama. Might be an out-of-state student. If you run into that situation where someone's trying to bring CUs in, contact the help desk. We'll help you one-on-one. But in general, it's like if someone gets a high school diploma or an equivalent from a program that awards credits for a high school diploma or high school equivalent. So like Jesse was saying, if someone gets a high school diploma, that can count as an EFL, right? Because they went from, not having that base diploma to having it, right? If they are enrolled in an instruction below post-secondary and they're exiting that program to enroll in post-secondary, so if they're in some type of adult education program and they finish it and they exit it and now they're going on to an associate's degree or a bachelor's degree or something like that, that counts as an EFL, right? If they do the high school credit program and enroll in post-secondary, which is kind of the same thing, but it's giving you a bit more specificity there. So, again, like I said, it's pretty much the same as the third option, but the fourth option is just a little bit more specific. If for someone who essentially was below high school level, completed it, and moved into a post-high school level. That's useful if someone is like homeschooled or has some other type of alternative education where maybe they don't have like grades in this, or if it's like a foreign student who's in some type of exchange program, things like that. Again, these are very rare. That's why they're so esoteric and specific. And then I don't actually know if we do HISET or TASK. I would probably have to talk to some of my education counterparts to answer what that last one means. Let's just say don't use it unless you're very certain and then contact us and we'll double check it, right? And then successfully pass the subtest on a state recognized high school equivalency examination, right? Basic. That one actually is kind of simpler because for all of these, it's trying to capture that an education level was attained, even though it wasn't attained through the TABE. So these, again, very rare. You're not going to be entering these all the time. If you are, something's wrong. Our policy is that you use the pre-TABE and post-TABE, like Jesse said, right? That's not an option. So this is an additional attempt to capture an EFL if someone was not able to post-TABE or someone forgot to do a pre-TABE. So this is like an emergency situation. In general, you are required to use the TABE. So we encourage you to do that. I think that's all I have. Nope, one more. I think this is the last one. I know I've said that a few times. The standard EFL. You all have seen this before. You enter the pre-test, you right under the EFL ribbon, the main EFL ribbon. Once you've put in all the information for the pre-test, it'll tell you the score reflects basic skills deficiency or not, right? And then 6 months later or whatever, whenever you're going in to do your post-test, you'll click on that same pre-test that you created 6 months prior, right? You don't create a new level, but you select that pre-test and it'll show you at the very bottom of the screen, create post-test record, and that's where you'll put in the post-test. So all you have to do is enter in these testing scores, and the system's going to automatically calculate whether or not they receive that EFL. It's even going to put it in MSG. So I'll say this once. You do not have to then enter the MSG. Simply putting the pre-test and then later putting the post-test will have the system automatically calculate the MSG for you. One small note on this. So TABE has decided to move to the 1314. The system is having issues trying to do anything on the 1112. I highly encourage everyone, go ahead and switch to the 1314. Let's get that in so we don't have too many fall into the cracks of this 1112, 1314 change because it's kind of a nightmare. If you're in a position where one of your students pre-tested on the 1112 and now they're trying to post-test them on the 1112. Jesse, correct me if I'm saying something wrong. Because there's no way for us to convert 1112 to 1314. They have an entirely different grading rubricum, right? So just contact us if you're in that position. We'll figure out a way to force the EFL into the system. And for all of these, simply entering in the system is not enough. That is assuming that you therefore, or you subsequently enter the document into My Documents, right? That's required. That's what we got written up for. So don't just put a high school transcript in the MSG ribbon and then pat yourself on the back. Go ahead and put the transcript in as well under My Documents. that is what the monitors are actually going to look for. And that follows through with all of these options. You inevitably have to enter the credential or you have to enter the MSG itself as a document. So there's 2 steps to both of these processes. I think that's all I have. Okay, excellent. That's all I have. We still have a little bit of time. Does anyone have any questions right now? Like Jess said, feel free to